are going nuts about the Giza Plateau in Egypt, and in this video I thought I'd explain why. So what is it that they're finding underneath the Giza Plateau, or specifically the Great Pyramid of Giza, that's freaking so many people out? Well, scientists recently have done a bit of a LiDAR scan, except with sound. I'm not quite sure of the science and the technology behind it, but basically they've bombarded the Great Pyramid of Giza with sound waves, and they've used a sensor of some sort to work out the echoes and the reflections and the vibrations and sound and all of that sort of stuff to form a 3D map, a picture, if you will, of what's underneath the Great Pyramid of Giza. That in itself is pretty cool, but what they found is remarkable. So the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the great wonders of the world, is one of the most enormous structures. It's kind of almost mind-bogglingly huge until I think it was the Eiffel Tower displaced it, and that's relatively recently, like in the last 250-ish years. The Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest thing ever to have been built by humans. And I put a bit of an asterisk on that because we're not entirely certain that humans did build it, but that's another conversation. So let's assume that they did. How did they build it? Well, we still don't know. How would we build it today? We still don't know. Regardless of everything that's above the ground, what's below the ground, to me, is even more mind-boggling. So they've discovered pillars, like circular pillars, and I think there's about 8 of them. And they've got this sort of structure going around it like a helix. If you think of a single strand of DNA, about half of that, that's the sort of structure winding up. Some people call it like a spiral staircase. Spiral isn't entirely true because spirals get bigger or smaller depending on which way you go. A helix is pretty much even all the way around. So just the science of making something like that deep into the ground. How deep? It's like 1.5 miles. Like, what? 1.5 miles deep? How can that even be possible? Well, one thing's for certain, it wasn't built by slaves. Like, how could a slave, or even a bunch of slaves, so uneducated people, do that? It doesn't make sense to me. And as a kid learning about the pyramids of Egypt in school, I never thought that they were built by slaves. And that's not me bragging, it just didn't really feel right. I just thought, no, surely not, that can't be right. I was also told that the slaves were fed on 1 onion a day, which would kill them pretty damn quickly because of the energy that would be required to build these things. But anyway, I digress. I know that they weren't built by slaves, and I'm pretty sure that everyone else does too. So, if they weren't built by slaves, first of all, who did build them? Secondly, why did they build it? These pillars, they're enormous. Scientists are describing this as a vast city underground. Now, we don't know whether it is a city. We don't even know whether they're hollow or whether there's something else going on with these things that we don't understand. The helical structure could be staircases, or it could be a conduit or something else. We don't know what they're made of. We don't know why they're there. We don't know very much at all about them, really. But once you've gone 1.5 miles down, there are 2 huge chambers. How huge? Like the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid itself. Around about that same sort of size. Enormous, right? These enormous structures. And they're hidden down deep, about 1.5 miles underneath the Great Pyramid of Giza. Underneath the pillars of possibly stone or basalt, or we don't really know what, there are these 2 boxes. We think they're stone, and we know that they're hollow, and we know that they're vast, around about the same size as the King's Chamber. What are they for? Now, some people say this is a vast city, okay, but is it a city or is it something else? I'd love to know your thoughts on this down in the comments. If I find out more information, I'm going to put a link up here to a video that I haven't yet created. So if there is a link up there, then please watch that. It's going to be really interesting. If not, then maybe I haven't found out anything further. But I want to follow this and I want to find out a bit more about it because this is going to be huge. Is the Great Pyramid 5,000 years old? That's a good question. Who actually made it? Was it the Egyptians or was it someone else? I don't know whether I believe that it was 5,000 years old because of Göbekli Tepe and all of that sort of stuff. And again, I haven't created a video about that yet, but I'm definitely going to, and I'm going to put that link up here as well. So if that's linked, then click on that. It's not going to be when this video first comes out, but it will be hopefully a bit later on. So I don't think that the Great Pyramid of Giza was 12,000 years old. I know it wasn't built by slaves. I just know it in my soul. And I don't know who did build it. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not an ancient alien conspiracy theorist saying it was definitely another civilization. I don't know whether it was a different civilization or a different species or visitors from an extra dimensional plane. I don't know. It could be anything. I just know that what we're being told about it doesn't marry up with the evidence, and that's always a red flag for me to go, I don't know the truth, but I know that I don't know the truth. So that's a good way to be skeptical. So I think we need to stay skeptical about all of this stuff. That's really the only way we're ever going to learn anything, and that's kind of the scientific method anyway, isn't it? Just to stay skeptical, keep on testing our assumptions, find out more information, and ultimately that's the way to true enlightenment, I think. And I don't want to sound like a prophet, I don't want to sound like a religious leader, but just open your mind a little bit. And I've gone onto some of these forums. Some of them are quite abusive, frankly. Some of the people on there are just like, vast cities, how do we know it's a city? That's obviously nonsense, we're being lied to. Yeah, okay, you can say that. And I think that's a bit of hyperbole that you can probably allow these scientists that sort of hyperbole, that sort of expansive thinking, because they don't know what it is, but it is intriguing and it is cool. So please let me know down in the comments what you think. Like, subscribe, ding that bell, all of that sort of good stuff really helps out this channel. I'll be back next time with some more magical awesomeness, but until next time, as always,
Stay magical.